Welcome back to MBCS classes. In today's video, we are going to be understanding the concept of bubble sort. In the previous video, we have seen what selection sort is. Selection sort selects one element and then compares that element with all the other elements of the array to sort the array in ascending or descending order. But in bubble sort, only the adjacent pairs are compared and swapped if necessary until the list is complete. So basically, bubble sort is also an algorithm which arranges the array into ascending or descending order. But the only difference it has from selection sort is that in bubble sort, only the adjacent pairs are compared and swapped. And the word adjacent means one next to other. Let's understand this concept with the help of a simple example. On your screen, you can see an array which has the array elements 7, 2, 6, 3 and 1. And we have to arrange this array into ascending order with the help of bubble sort technique. Let's understand it by solving it manually. We have our unsorted list on the left side which has elements 7, 2, 6, 3 and 1. In the first step, we compare our first element, that is 7, to its next element, that is 2. Since 7 is greater than 2, we swap these elements. In the next step, we compare the second element of the array to its next element, 7 and 6. Since 7 is greater than 6, we replace their position, that is swap their positions. In the third step, we compare the third element to fourth element, 7 and 3. Since 7 is greater than 3, we again swap these two elements and interchange their positions. In the next step, we compare the fourth element to the fifth element. Now 7 is again greater than 1, so we interchange their position as well. Last step, on the left side, we can see that 7 has now reached the last position of the array, because it is the greatest element in the whole array. Thus, we are now not going to touch it anymore because it has reached its destined place. With that, we come to the end of round 1. Rounds actually represent the iterations of the loops that are running. So I loop and j loop. So this iteration of round is actually the I loop. Now we move on to round 2. In the first step, you can see that 2 and 6 are compared, that is first element of the array to the second element of the array. Since 2 is lesser than 6, there is no swapping done over here. Then we move to the second step where 6 and 3 are compared, the second element of the array to the third element of the array. Since 6 is greater than 3, their positions are interchanged, that is swapping is done. Then we move on to the third step. In round 2, we compare the third element of the array to the fourth element of the array. Since 6 is greater than 1, we swap those elements. That is 6 goes to 1's position and 1 goes to 6's position. Now here we can notice that 6, which is the second greatest element of the array, has finally reached to its destined position. Now we are not going to compare it to any other position or element. While we are doing bubble sort, you might think to yourself why the name bubble is given to this sorting technique. Actually, it has taken from a real life example. So if you have ever seen a glass of soda, in it small bubbles will rise to the top. In the same way, the small elements in this kind of array will rise to the top of the array, that means front of the array, and the larger elements will go to the back of the array, and that is why this name has been used. As the element 6 has reached its destined position, now we have come to the end of round 2. Now let's move on to the round 3. On the right side of the slide, we can see the first step of round 3. Here, the first element of the array is compared to the second element of the array. Since 2 is lesser than 3, there is no swapping done in this step. Then we move on to the next step. In the next step, second element of the array and third element of the array are compared, 3 and 1. Since 3 is greater than 1, their positions are interchanged and they are swapped. Last step of round 3 shows that now 3, which is the third greatest element of the entire array, has reached its destined position. With that, we end round 3. Now we move on to round 4. In round 4 there is only one step, and that step is comparison between first element of the array and second element of the array. 2 and 1 are compared. Now since 2 is greater than 1, their positions are interchanged and they are swapped. With that, we have completely arranged the entire array in ascending order. After solving this problem manually, we can draw some conclusions out of it. First, that whenever we are given an elemental array of n elements, so suppose here we had been given an array of 5 elements, we can arrange that array in ascending order by using bubble sort technique in n-1 rounds. So suppose here we had been given an array of 5 elements and we had arranged this array in n-1, that is 4 rounds. In the similar way, if we had been given, let's say, an elemental array of 10 elements, so in that case we could have arranged that array in ascending order in 10-1, that is 9 rounds. The very first thing to be noted over here is also that this kind of algorithm, the bubble sort algorithm, is going to use 2 loops in nested loop arrangement. So there is going to be an I loop and there is going to be a j loop. Now I loop is actually the round, so there are 4 rounds, so 4 times the I loop will run in this program if there are 5 numbers given in the array. And the j loop is actually the steps in each round. So in the first round we had 4 steps, then in the second round we had 3 steps, then in third round we had 2 steps, and in fourth round we had only 1 step. So as you can see, in each round 1 step decreases. That is actually j loop. Okay, so if there is any confusion left on what is actually I and j loop and how are they functioning, let us understand with this very simple diagram on your screen. So you can see an array arrangement which has the notation 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. This array is our array which will be given by the user. So this array we have to take and we have to arrange it in ascending order with the help of bubble sort algorithm. So as I told you before that round is I loop. So here the round is first round, so I is going to be I equals to 0 because array starts from 0, and in the first round the first step is going to be 0 and 1 comparison. So this first step is actually j equals to 0. Then we move on to j equals to 1 where 1 and 2 are compared. Then we move on to j equals to 2 where 2 and 3 are compared. Then we move on to j equals to 3 where 3 and 4 are compared. So with that, round 1 gets over, and as I told you before also that as round 1 ends, our element which is the greatest in the entire string will reach its destined position, that is the last position in the array, and which is why we have represented that greatest number at the last of the array with red. Now there will be no comparison of any other number with this number, we are not even going to touch it anymore. So that is why we are reducing 1 step in the round 2. So now we have moved on to round 2, and in round 2 I will become I plus 1, that is I will become 1 because it was earlier 0, and then we are going to again start from j equals to 0. So in j equals to 0 we are going to compare 0 and 1 again. That was step 1. Now let's move on to step 2 where j will become 1 and elements 1 and 2 will be compared. Then j will become 2 and elements 2 and 3 will be compared. Then we end with round 2 and we get our second greatest element which is marked in red. That will also be not touched anymore now. Now as we move on to round 3, again one more step, that is one more j loop will reduce. In round 3 our I has become 2 and we are again going to start from step 0, that means j is equals to 0, where we compare the element 0 and 1. Then we move to step 2 where j will become 1 and we are going to compare element 1 and 2. Then we end our round 3, and with the end of round 3 we get our third greatest element over here. It has reached its destined position, and which is why it will not be compared anymore. We move on to round 4 where I is equals to 3 and j will again be 0. And here the comparison happens between element 0 and element 1. Once that comparison happens, the entire array is sorted. The entire array is marked in red to show that all the elements have reached their destined positions. Now let's form our I and j loop. So I loop over here actually shows the rounds of the entire sorting process. So as I told you earlier also that the number of rounds in sorting will be equal to n minus 1 if there are n elements in the array. So I will run from 0 to n minus 1. So then we move to j loop. J loop actually represents the steps in each round. So as I told you before also that after each round one step will be decreased. So that is why j is going to run from j equals to 0 to j is less than n minus I minus 1. So n minus 1 is done because j will start running from 0 and array's index starts from 0. That is why we are going to reduce one step. Why do we do minus I? Actually, when I is equals to 0, that time we need steps only 4. So j also should run 4 times. So 5 minus 1 is 4 and 4 minus I equals to 0. So I is 0. So 4 minus 0 is 4 again and it's going to run less than 4. So it's going to run 0, 1, 2 and 3. That is how we are going to decrease j one by one after each round. Now let's move on to the programming part of the bubble sort technique. So here in the program, first we have accepted 10 numbers from the user. Then these two loops which we had studied, I and j, are arranged in nested loop order. So here in the I loop, you can notice that we have already by ourselves done n minus 1. So there were 10 elements. So n minus 1, that is 9. So we have already written I is less than 9. And same is done in j. So we have to do n minus 1 in j also, n minus 1 minus I. So n minus 1, that is 10 minus 1, 9, we have already done by ourselves. The computer just needs to do 9 minus I. So that is the easier form of remembering it. Once the arrangement is done in ascending order, then we can display the result with the help of I loop. In that we just have to print the entire array again. This is the entire program for bubble sort technique. So main part in this program is actually the two for loops and the swapping part. So the two for loops are already explained. The swapping part, actually we are just using one extra variable as explained in earlier videos also. And in bubble sort, as we know that we only compare adjacent pairs, that is why we are going to only compare in if number j is greater than number j plus 1. So in if condition also we are going to compare adjacent pairs only. And this is the output of the compiled program. That is all for today's video. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe and share this video with your friends. And if you have any doubt regarding this topic, don't hesitate to comment them under this video.